Hello, what an honor to hang out with you all at the very, very final Calibrate. I'm Lara Hogan. I used to be the VP of Engineering at Kickstarter, and before that, I was an engineering director at Etsy, and now I get to hang out with you all at events like this. I am a coach for managers and also a trainer. I actually hung out with like 40 of you at a workshop yesterday, so hello, you'll hear me talk about amygdalas all over again. So, like I said, I've got the honor of closing this out, and I'm really excited. So I want to talk about our brains. This red thing up in the front, right behind our foreheads, it's the prefrontal cortex, and it is responsible for the complex problem solving that we do. Anytime we're like rational, logical people, this thing is online. It doesn't fully develop until we're between the ages of 20 and 24, which may make some sense. But it does super different part of work than my other favorite part of the brain, the amygdala. Many of you are probably already familiar with it because this part of the brain, this little cutie, is responsible for processing our fear responses. So its whole job is to be on the lookout for data in our environment that's either a threat or reward. That's it. There's no other data that it's interested in. And if it gets a sense that a threat's headed towards us, it reacts. It goes into fight or flight mode, and it tells the prefrontal cortex, that rational, logical part of us, go on standby, I'm taking over. This is called amygdala hijacking. The amygdala saw a bear headed your way, and it was like, I got this, because if split hair, decisions were left up to our prefrontal cortex, we would have not survived the many woolly mammoth attacks that got us to where we are today. So think about the last time you got super frustrated at work. Maybe you felt like turning over tables or running for the hills. I'm gonna guess that there were no bears involved, right? No woolly mammoth attacks. So our amygdalas, when this happens, right, when we get upset, when we get like overly upset, overcome with emotion, our amygdalas are activated, and they're activated by more than just physical threats to our safety. Social scientists, anthropologists, and neurologists have been studying this, and they found that in the modern workplace, there are 6 core needs that humans have at work. Not all of these core needs are equally important to all of us, meaning what's most upsetting for my amygdala might be different than what's most upsetting for yours. That means that your teammates probably care about different things too. Because we only have 20 minutes here, I'm going to illustrate each of these 6 core needs by talking through how they might come up during one big event that happens in a manager's life. That thing where everything around us feels so fuzzy, ambiguous, frustrating. That kind of event where you have to make some impossible calls. You have to share some news that others aren't going to agree with. Hearts might be broken. This one thing causes so much turmoil. I'm talking about desk moves. Has anybody in here gone through this recently? Yeah. Right. Is anybody like, what is she talking about? I've never had an emotional response to a desk move. Yeah, right, there's a few of us. Okay, right, totally. It's rational, it's logical. All we're doing is taking where we sit one day and just moving it to another part of the office. Why could this feel so threatening for us and our teammates? This is your rational and logical part of your brain talking. This is your prefrontal cortex talking. Desk moves are my favorite example about why we need to understand the 6 things that humans especially need at work. Watch how this works. So the first core need for the modern human is huge. It's the need to belong to a group, a clan, a tribe, etc. We all want to understand how we relate to the group that's around us. Anytime we're othered, anytime we're left behind, we're going to feel bad. So when your team is asked to move your desks, how might your belonging core need feel threatened? A desk might be your representation of how you belong to the larger organization. Maybe you used to sit next to a peer team, and now you're going to be far away from them. And now you're going to be on a different floor, or left behind from your teammates, or maybe you're hot desking, and you have no more desk at all. Like, I don't understand how I relate to this group at all, right? If you're thinking, what are you talking about? No, when I had to move desks, I was upset for a completely different reason. I wasn't worried about feeling alienated. Right. the same stimulus can threaten any of the 6 core needs. So it might be threatening for one person, it might feel super different for another person. Let's keep on going. Next up is the core need of feeling improvement or progress towards the things that matter to us. That sense of progress could be for your organization, it could be for your team, it could be for you personally. It could be feeling like, okay, I'm actually continuing to learn, like Kathleen was talking in the last talk. An announcement of the desk move may surprise someone who doesn't see how it fits into the broader picture. Desk moves can disrupt our feeling of moving forward, can feel like a ridiculous distraction from the work that we are trying to achieve together. See what I mean about how the same stimulus can threaten any of these 6 core needs? It's a surprising thing, but let's keep on going. Choice. I mean, obviously, right? Like, we all need to have some power over the things that matter to us in our work life. We all want to have some sense, some amount of autonomy. This is a funny one. We can't have too much choice, and we can't have too little choice. We need like a balance of choice in our day-to-day work life. And so, of course, if a desk move is dictated to your team, rather than allowing you to choose when you move, where you sit, right, your sense of control stemming from choice is gonna feel threatened. Especially as organizations grow, there will be fewer and fewer opportunities for you and your coworkers to have full choice over the range of things that happen in your workplace. Desk moves are often a representation of a larger shift in a company's culture or scale, so you or your teammates might see it as an overwhelming representation of more change to come. Next up is equality or fairness, right? Equality is the idea that the world is fair, everybody has equal access to what they need to survive and to thrive. When humans feel like something isn't fair, we start riots. We will literally take to the streets. Organizational psychologists see teams ripped apart, usership decline, and companies destroyed if even there's a perception of a lack of fairness. And desk moves may feel unfair. Some people in groups are treated better than others, right? Better access to the snacks, right? Like it's not too cold in that part of the office. And like it or not, where a team sits is often correlated to like who the company cool kids are. I wish that this wasn't true, but it's absolutely a thing that happens. You can see how this might flare up the equality and fairness core need. And also some groups or people might have had more choice in where they got to move their desks or when they got to move. So you can see it's gonna feel unfair, right? If some groups got choice and we didn't. And this is a perfect example of how multiple core needs might be going on at the same exact time. Predictability. If every moment was 100% full of surprises, what would that feel like? Maybe a little bit exciting, a little bit intense, maybe like a little bit of both. It turns out most humans need some balance of predictability and surprises. Too much surprise and our brains are overwhelmed, and too little predictability and like we are so bored, de-energized. We need, just like choice, we need a balance of predictability in our lives. Predictability may be, of course, threatened by a surprising desk move announcement, especially for those of us who are particularly analytical and data-driven. Showing up and working from the same place, right? Same like light coming through the windows, same air vents, same chair feeling. we have that routine. We feel like any kind of disruption is gonna throw us for a loop. Last up is significance. This is effectively status. We wanna know where we sit in a hierarchy, which means like if we're uninvited to an important decision-making meeting or if one of our peers is promoted, our sense of significance is gonna feel threatened. Maybe your desk was near the CEOs and now it's not gonna be. Maybe you had that corner office or best view out the window and now you won't. Maybe you liked sitting near your boss, right? And now you won't be able to have that opportunity. These kinds of changes can absolutely tap into that significance core need. So these core needs make up Biceps. Paloma Medina, who is an organizational trainer and coach, came up with this acronym to help us remember what 6 core needs at work for humans often are. Even with the most ridiculous of events, the same stimulus, again, might cause a wide variety of reactions from folks. What might feel most threatening for you, like for me, often significance or fairness comes up. It might be completely different from your teammate. Think about which one comes up most often for you and which comes up most often for your team as a whole. This is so, so, so important to start to pay attention to and get to know your teammates. So all those challenges we've been talking about all day today, right? It's not just desk moves, but the unknowns you need to make manageable, the hard decisions that you need to make, like understanding how you feel good at the end of the day, those issues that you need to confidentially sort out behind closed doors, the impossible challenges that you face day in and day out. Biceps are here to help. For example, you can share the Biceps model to help investigate current points of friction on your team. Maybe you've been noticing more disagreements and PRs than normal. Or there's been a lot of awkward silence or passive aggression in team retrospectives. Or, again, there's like an impending desk move that was just announced. Put the Biceps core needs list up on a screen and walk your teammates through it. Ask them to mull over which core need is feeling threatened right now for them, if any, and sometimes there might be multiple at once. As soon as you go through this exercise, your teammates will begin using this new language to talk about what's feeling sticky for them. It can help them move out of the amygdala hijack state and back into the prefrontal cortex mode so you can start problem solving together. Or if you're in a one-on-one and your teammate is describing an infuriating interaction or some other turmoil with a coworker, look at these Biceps lists together and ask them which one of these core needs are feeling threatened for them because of this frustrating interaction. Talk it through and start figuring out, what does your teammate need? And then you can ask, hey, just looking at this list again, which of these core needs do you think is going on for the other person? Guarantee you they're going to sit back and be like, light bulb moment. If they're ready for it, they're going to be able to start building that empathy back up, right? It's going to help them start to see, okay, like my amygdala has been threatened for this one reason, but probably my coworkers is too. Over time, you can start to figure out, like, okay, what do each of these people need in order to repair this relationship and start moving forward together? Again, hopefully, this is going to help you build that empathy over time. And guess what? Your manager is probably a human too. These core needs are still going on for them, right? Like, you may not be able to toss out this Biceps core list and be like, hello, manager, which of these core needs are feeling threatened for you? But you can obliquely try to figure out, okay, what typically comes up most often for this person, right? Which one of these needs, is it fairness, is it choice, is it understanding, their significance in the larger organization? I like to try to pay attention to this and start to play around and figure out, okay, what do they need the most help with, and how can these Biceps core needs help my understanding of where I can help them? I also try to help them see their own improvement and progress in their role and remind them to help celebrate their wins, right? Because as we all know, and we've talked about so much today, it's really hard to see when we've made improvement or progress in our role as managers, which is that huge core need right there in the middle. I want to dig into this for a minute. Why is it so hard to feel a sense of improvement or progress in our work as managers? I talk about this all the time in coaching calls. Like, once a week, someone asks me, how do I know if I'm doing a good job or not? Or, I used to feel productive at the end of the day when I was an individual contributor, but I have completely lost that feeling upon becoming a manager. How can I get that back? Erica Stanley actually touched on this in exactly this point in her talk. Our brains are trained to look for socially visible progress. We get dopamine hits from it. And when we were ICs, it was easy to make socially visible progress. We shipped something. We could see it, and everyone around us could too. But management work is supposed to be invisible, right? You're making hard decisions and having hard conversations intentionally behind closed doors. You are shaping the environment around your team so that they can be unblocked and make progress. Most of our work as managers has to be confidential. That's the role. So it's really hard for us to get that sense of socially visible improvement or progress, unlike when we were ICs. There's no confirmation that progress has been made by your peer set or your bosses or your teammates because management is such a black box. And even if we can see the work that we're doing every day, there's still often, as illustrated by Kathleen, a long lead time, right, between when we do a thing or say a thing and we find out if that had any impact, good or bad, on our work environment. So how on earth can we feel progress when there's no socially visible way to see it? How can we get this particular core need met? I'm going to suggest that you do two things. Number one, gather a few bits of data over time to start to feel that sense of improvement and progress in your work. And number two, find a way to make this data visible to others too, because it's a critical piece of that dopamine hit that we're looking for. Let's start with the first one. What data should we collect? Let's start by measuring how you're doing for each of these core needs at the beginning of the week and at the end of the week. I'm not talking about how well you're doing as a manager. You're not grading yourself. Instead, you're tracking which of your biceps core needs are currently feeling unmet, undernourished, or a little bit threatened, and see that change over time. Here's an example way to track it. It doesn't have to look like this. It doesn't have to need to be 5s across the board either. It's important to see 2s at the beginning of the week and 5s at the end of the week. You can even just pick one to focus on during the week. Here, I've picked improvement and progress. Still measure them all because it's even better to see this data over time, but you don't have to work on nourishing every single one of your core needs every single week. But then I want to talk about the second thing, right? How do we share this data with our peers? I want you to be able to get that socially visible progress. At Etsy, Paloma Medina, who helped us develop this acronym, she created this program called DENS. DENS are effectively when groups of managers, like 6 to 8 managers at a time, got together every other week and confidentially shared their challenges with each other to get some help from the other people in the room. This was a game changer for me and for many other managers. Imagine a space in which you can share what you're struggling with or working on while maintaining confidentiality. That means that those folks are going to check in with you, see how you're doing, and they'll want to hear how whatever you're dealing with works out. That means that we've routinely paused a DEN meeting to say, whoa, hold up, congratulations. The desk move happened and everything's okay now? Like, I know you just want to move on to the next thing, but like, let's take a minute to celebrate this enormous achievement, right? This is important. You did that. How often do we just move on to the next thing, right? Especially in our work as managers. There's no launch party for a reorg, right? Like, there's no trophy for writing that really hard email. There's no trophy for like delivering some really challenging feedback or writing that Confluence page. So find trustworthy peers to lean on so that they can celebrate your progress and so you can celebrate theirs too. It's a game changer. In fact, I'll go as far as to say this is the work. Without thinking through our own core needs and our peers' core needs and our teammates' core needs, we risk failing to meet our strategic objectives. We risk missing deadlines. We risk losing people from the team or from the organization, and we risk inching towards burnout. Think about all of the far more important events in our work where understanding people's core needs and helping to address them is critical. Reorgs, acquisitions, layoffs, critical feedback. This is a tool that's now in your toolbox, and you have the power to use it at any time. I want to close with a quote from Marco Rogers. He says, "My final tip, in order to cultivate those wins, you may need to change your expectations of how long things take. Changing things for the better takes time, just like anything worth doing. Good management is more about gardening than firefighting." When you leave this conference, when you go back to the happy hour or back to work on Monday, I want you to keep Biceps in mind. Because even though it's a silly acronym, we're talking about one enormous way that our work has value. And those core needs are going to be there no matter how big your team is, or who's on it, or where you sit in the org chart. Biceps is going to help you garden. And Biceps is going to help you feel that sense of improvement and progress too. You've got this. Thank you.